Well, if we have completed our watercolor sky with paint, and we took our watercolor pencil and we colored in the ocean with dark blue lines, we're ready to proceed. And we want to make sure that our paper is completely dry. Because for one thing, if the paper is wet and we try to draw on it with pencil, there's a very good chance that it's going to tear. Also, if the paper is wet and we try to paint on top of that, the paint is going to touch the wet paper and it's going to bleed and spread all over the place. And when we're drawing something that we want to have nice sharp edges, we want the paper to be completely dry. So if you're ready, we're going to take our watercolor pencils and we're going to complete our picture. Before I add any water to my painting, I'm going to completely finish the drawing with watercolor pencil. And I'm going to start with my green, and I'm going to go over the curved lines first with my green color pencil, and I'm going to go nice and dark. Like that. When I draw the lines, I'm going to fill up all those shapes that I made before when I drew it with pencil. And I want all of my lines to go up and down because I want to show the gravity on all these palm leaves. So there's the shape of the palm leaf, and I'm going to fill it in with lines that go up and down. And just like when I was drawing the water with color pencil and watercolor pencil, it's okay if I leave some uncolored areas. See how all the pencil strokes kind of point downwards? That shows the gravity pulling the weight of the palm leaves down. And if you look at this one, I drew a line right down the middle, and on this side, they go down to the left, and on this side, they go down to the right. You'll also notice that I left some white spaces. It looks a little squiggly, but when I fill it in with color, it won't show as much. I've also talked a little bit before about putting more than one color in every area. We did it when we made our tree pictures with pieces of orange and yellow construction paper. When we colored the sky, we put a little bit of blue, we put a little bit of purple. For our tree, we put a little bit of brown, a little bit of orange, a little bit of black in the tree trunk. The grass had some yellow and some green. I'm going to do the same thing with my palm leaves here. Again, I'm just going to make it kind of squiggly and color it quickly. I'm staying inside the lines, but I'm just adding a little bit of yellow to make it so it's not just one boring shade of green. So I'm ready now to go on to my trunk. I'm going to draw the outline, and then I'm going to color it in. This time, instead of going up and down, I'm going to go across, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a curve on my lines. Just zigzagging back and forth with a little bit of a curve, and that will show some of the roundness of the tree. Those lines are curved. Also, you'll notice that I didn't completely fill it in. And in the same way that I put some yellow In the green leaves, I'm going to put a little bit of yellow in my brown tree. For my beach, the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to outline it with brown. And then color it in with, you guessed it, some yellow. My sand is yellow, nice golden sand, but it's a little bit too golden. It doesn't look as realistic as I want it to look because it looks a little bit cartoony. So I'm going to add just a little bit of brown, and I'm going to color across, not up and down. I'm going to color across, but because brown is a much darker color than yellow, I don't need to press down nearly as hard. With my yellow, I press down pretty hard. But with my brown, I'm just going to add a little bit just so it doesn't look quite as cartoon yellow. But again, I'm coloring across, not up and down, not really scribbling, just coloring lightly. And I've made it a little bit darker towards the bottom, and I slowly made it get lighter and lighter as it gets towards the top. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. But my coloring is almost done now. My island that's in the foreground is completely finished. Now I have to do my distant island, and I'm going to start with blue. And I'm going to color it in completely with blue. I've taken my light blue and I've colored my island. Because it's farther away, it looks a little bit more faded. But again, just one color is a little bit boring. So I'm going to take some purple also, and I'm going to add a little bit of purple. Again, the purple is a more dominant color. It's darker. So you don't need to press down very hard with the purple. You just want to make it so you can see a little bit of the purple and a little bit of the blue. And at this point, once I've colored my palm leaves, my tree, and my island, both foreground island and background island, I'm ready to add some water to show how this is different than a regular colored pencil drawing. I'm going to start with the ocean because I think with all these white spaces here that get filled in, it's really going to give you a sense of how watercolor pencils work. All I need is some clean water, no paint at all, and I'm just going to go over my ocean carefully. Staying inside that area where the blue ocean is, and I'm painting almost as if I'm painting with invisible ink. Now you're going to find that if you go over and over and over your lines, your lines are going to disappear. If you want to keep those lines so that they show, try to go over just 1 or 2 times with water. And you don't need very much water, but you see how it fills in all those white spaces? I still have the lines in my ocean to show those soft rolling waves, but when I go over everything with water, it fills in those white spaces, so it doesn't look as fake, it doesn't look as cartoony. Now I'm going to clean my brush and go on to my next color. The next color that I'm going to do is the green. And it's the same technique. I just take my brush and I paint my palm leaves with clean water, and the watercolor pencil will fill in those empty spaces. It's got a little bit of green in there, it's got a little bit of yellow in there. But because I did this with watercolor pencil and not just watercolor, it still has the texture of those palm leaves. So it doesn't look flat, like just a flat piece of paper. It's got some of that texture that's hopefully going to make our picture look a little bit more real. So go ahead, if you haven't started yet, take your brush, work on the water, then clean off your brush and do the palm leaves. Take a minute to do that now. I'm going to clean my brush and get ready to do the next color. Once you have an understanding of how this works, you can probably do the rest on your own without any kind of instruction. All you're doing is taking clean water and painting right over each area. And when you hold your paintbrush should be pointing right up at the ceiling like this. I don't know why, but a lot of artists have the habit of painting like this. That's not the way you hold a paintbrush, not when you want to control it. You don't hold a pencil and write your name like this. You hold the pencil close to the tip. The same thing with a brush. If you want to control it, hold it near the tip, not right at the end, but fairly close to the tip, and hold your paintbrush straight up and down. Now my palm tree is done. You still get a little hint of the texture in there, but it looks more solid than if I just left those squiggles in there. Go ahead and do your tree trunk after you've done your ocean and your palm leaves. And our painting is almost finished. I'm going to take some more clean water, and because I've got a little bit of brown in there with my yellow, it's going to look much more realistic. And I know it's easy for me to work quickly because I've been painting for 100 years. So feel free to take your time. You don't have to keep up with me. But I think at this point, most of you will have a pretty good understanding of how all of this works. The last thing that I have to do is my island. Now it looked pretty squiggly before. You could really see those pencil lines. But when I go over it with clean water, and even though it's clean water, and it seems like it wouldn't make much of a mess if you went out of the lines, because it picks up some of that watercolor paint, if I go outside the lines, the color is going to go with me. So I'm really going to take my time, and with each new color, I want to stay in the lines. If you go out of the lines a little bit, that's okay. In fact, it may even look a little bit better if you go out of the lines a little bit. Kind of a controlled mess can look good sometimes. But now all I've done is taken some clean water and gone over all of my watercolor pencil, and I think it's a really neat look. Just like that, our watercolor land seascape is all finished. It started out with a terrific drawing that you guys did. The next thing we did was the sky. One of the things that I really hope that you learned with this project is to do the light colors first, do the background colors first, and then build the darker, more definite colors on top of that. If we painted our tree first and then tried to put a blue sky around the tree that we had already painted, the whole thing would turn into a mess. So keep in mind to do the light colors first. Keep in mind that if you want to have soft, hazy, blended colors, your paper should be completely wet. And if you want to have sharp, detailed edges on your drawing, the paper has to be bone dry. But if you learn when to have the paper dry, when to have the paper wet, what colors to use first and what colors to wait on, there's really a lot of neat techniques that you can do with watercolor. I hope that you enjoyed this project. I hope it makes you eager to do another watercolor painting, to experiment a little bit more with watercolor and watercolor pencils to see the different techniques that you can come up with. But until we get together again, stay creative, stay safe, stay cool and strong. We'll see you soon.